Ergos have always not been a thing for me. I started off gaming using the CLG Death Adder and the G703 from Logitech, but ever since I switched over to ambidextrous, I've never gone back. Lamsu Thorn was a bit too tall for me. Ixlite V3 just didn't feel natural when I used my fingers. Closest perfect mouse for me was the MP01S, but even though it was a really good mouse along with the two I just mentioned, it just didn't provide a good reason for me to use it over an ambi. This might have just changed my mind. The Zaopin Z2 is a hot swappable ergo mouse that has good specs for a really competitive price at $60. The biggest reason I enjoyed using this mouse over all the other ergos I've tried in the past lies in the shape, which I'll explain later, but before that I need to point some stuff out real quick that you should know of before making a purchase. First is the way Zaopin cuts corners when making this mouse. With high-end specs at a lower price point, companies will consider ways to widen the profit margin without you knowing. Zaopin achieves this by focusing all the budget on performance and disregarding the quality of life features. The Z2 has the option to hot swap switches out with only 3 screws at the bottom that hold the mouse together. The screws are quite old when you take them off with a lot of residue, some from the shell and some from I don't know where. The process is also much more tedious compared to Endgame Gear, another company that has a hot swappable mouse. If you don't have your own screwdriver, good luck using the one they give you because it takes a considerable amount of extra effort to unscrew things with that. They've also weirdly enough applied skates that don't have holes for you to unscrew the screws, so you'll have to take those off, which is kind of strange for a hot swappable mouse, though they do give you this extra bottom skate in the box. The second thing to note is the software. If you search for the Zaopin Z2 software, you won't get much results for the main page. This might confuse some users, but it's rather simple. You just need to head to Zaopin's official website, which is on their Twitter page, or if you type in zaopinworld.com. Then go to the third subheader and click on the first download, which is the Zaopin wireless mouse brackets Z1 Pro and Z2. Now I've gotten that out of the way, let's jump into the shape. This for an ergo is considered god tier in my eyes. When I'm gaming with some mates, they do sometimes call me blind, but my eyes are definitely wide and alert when I was using this mouse. I could be wrong on this, but it seems like Zaopin has made this shape since I've never seen the mouse with the same shape before, but I will say that the top profile of the Z2 does remind me of the SteelSeries Prime, which was a decent shape that suffered from poor execution. The feel of the mouse however resembles more of a Logitech GPX since the Zaopin Z2 has a pretty neutral hump, not really prominent in the mid or back section but rather a good balance. A GPX is kind of a jack of all trades. Sure, there are grips that aren't the best, but you can pretty much throw anything at it and it'll work, and this mouse definitely gives me that kind of vibe. When I relax claw this, a lot more of the mouse is making contact with my palm. It's a really comfortable shape to grip, and the biggest factor I think is the slope. A lot of ergos tend to have a slope that starts from a really high point and curves down in an extreme manner. This gives users that tilt the hand a more natural way to grip the mouse. The Z2 however, as you can see here, is first off a lot flatter in terms of height, but the slope is also not as drastic at all. This gives me proper surface contact for someone who doesn't tilt their grip, where typical ergos I would feel the left side of my hand not really touching the mouse at all. The Z2 eliminates this by bringing the end of the slope a little bit higher. The sides are also very nice for finger placements with almost no curves at all, and combined with the relative flatness of the mouse, you can actually pull off a fingertip, but obviously if you're buying an ergo you would want to make the most out of the nice shape. Gripping it with either the tip of your fingers or the sides both felt really good. The mouse never slipped out and in general felt really locked in even with finger motion. The coating of this mouse is also solid, not the best but it is really decent. In terms of grippiness, this is better than the Lamsu Atlantis Mini 4K, which has a matte finish, but not as grippy as the Thorn or the Wiseout Cloud. The Z2 does sport a weaker rubberized coating like the Thorn and Wiseout Cloud, but your fingers don't feel like they're stuck to the surface as well. It still grips nice though and doesn't budge when I sweat. And the other good thing about this is that fingerprints are less evident, which is a pleasant surprise, since rubberized materials tend to get dirty really easily. Now this could be because the mouse is not covered in as strong of a coating compared to other mice, so that could be a trade-off, but personally I would wipe my mouse once a week anyway, so I would have preferred a grippier surface. The clicks on this mouse are insanely good. Like I've mentioned before, you can hot swap other switches in, but there just isn't a need to. The TTC Gold micro switches are more than enough. Crispiness in the clicks is subtle while being very light, lighter than the Sora V2 but only slightly heavier than the Sora 4K. They spam well, they're consistent no matter where you click. You most likely will have no problems with these unless feather clicks are not your thing. Side buttons are average with the front and back both having a different feel. Mouse 4 has some pre-travel but no post and has a crisp, clean feel.
Crisp, clean lock, boys.
While Mouse 5 has no pre but a little bit of post travel, feels lighter and sounds hollow. Mouse 5 is definitely not my favorite button to use on this mouse, but I've never played a game where I've had to constantly click it, so I'm okay with it, but if you play Fortnite, this could be something to consider. Scroll wheel is good overall with well-defined satisfying steps. Scrolling up and down on this thing feels very nice, but clicking down onto the scroll wheel feels a little bit heavy. If they made it a tad lighter, this would have been perfect, but once again, this isn't something I'd use a lot in day-to-day use anyways. The skates on this mouse are above average. They're not the smoothest I've used, but they glide fast, especially if you take in the fact that the mouse is 65 grams. Having the speed makes the mouse feel lighter than it really is. The skates perform consistently on different surfaces, regardless if you apply pressure onto the mouse or not, and they also don't have much static friction either, which is nice to start a mouse movement easier. You do get a spare set of skates, but they're the exact same as the ones already applied, and not a different variant, but these are good. There's no need to swap them out. Next is the 4K implementation and battery life. At this point, 2K or 4K is pretty much the standard for gaming mice these days, and it shows, because literally every recent 4K gaming mice has had the same, if not really similar results. With that being said, the Z2 is no different, with 2K and 4K playing absolutely fine, no stutters or jitters in game and in normal use. The software used is your average software that every Chinese company uses. It's decently easy to navigate and it's just okay. The battery life is also average. On 4K I get about 1.5 days, which is in line with other 4K mice. I do prefer playing on 2K, and the Z2 gets around 4 to 5 days before needing a charge, which is a better option in my opinion if you don't want to charge it every day like you do with your phone. Last thing I'll talk about is the price. Now I can't say if this is the best bang for the buck mouse because I'm also currently testing the VXE R1 Pro Max, but so far this mouse is borderline top tier, up there with mice that are double its price. $60 with 4K, original shape as far as I know, really solid coding giving an overall great performance. It just goes to show that cheaper mice really are catching up with major companies. I do think you should give this mouse a go, only if you're looking for a smaller ergo mouse and you don't want to splurge. In an objective sense, this mouse ticks all the boxes of a good gaming mouse, and this is definitely slotting into the rotations of mices I'll be using regularly.